Welcome to the Queensland Media Club. I'm pleased to welcome our speaker, the Honourable Jarrod Bleijie, Deputy Premier, Minister for State Development, Infrastructure, Relations and Planning. It's a long title. Jarrod grew up on the Sunshine Coast. He was elected to Parliament in 2009 at the age of 27. A former commercial lawyer, Jarrod's previously held senior cabinet positions, including Attorney General and Minister for Justice. He now chairs the Cabinet Housing Task Force and leads delivery of Queensland's $2 billion Residential Activation Fund. It's designed to unlock more housing and supply. He oversees industrial relations productivity and has reforms to deliver Queensland's largest infrastructure pipeline, including the generational 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Today, Mr. Bleijie will take us inside the tent and reveal the crucial next steps for delivering infrastructure and legacy for 2032 and beyond. Please join me in welcoming Jarrod Bleijie.
Well, thank you very much, Hayden. Great to be here, folks, as this is the 12-month anniversary of the Christopher Government's 2032 delivery plan. You would all know the document in and out, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We've stuck to the plan. We haven't deviated from the plan, we've stuck to it, even rowing in Rockhampton, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in my speech today. But folks, I do want to thank you all for coming today. Thank you to our Queensland Media Club and all the wonderful sponsors who put on today and our hosts. I want to, as Minister also for Defence Industry in Queensland, I want to give a shout out and acknowledge all our defence personnel currently serving at home and abroad, and also to the veterans who are in the room today that have served for the Australian Defence Force. So give it up, ladies and gentlemen, for our mighty veterans in the room today. I want to acknowledge Minister Tim Mander, Minister for all things fun in Queensland. As I've many times when Tim and I are in a room together, I always say, yes, he's the Minister for Sport, Olympic and Paralympic Games. He gets the fun element, I get all the building infrastructure, and then once it's built, I hand it over to him, and he sells the ticket with Mr. Liveris, and everyone has a great time. But the burden of responsibility of building is certainly on the Department of State Development's shoulders, Tim, isn't it? Yeah, apparently, that's right. Thank you to all of my departmental team here today as well. A lot of the work that I'm going to talk about today is because of the efforts that my team have put in over the past 12 months. Mayors, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, well, can you believe it? It's happening. A lot can happen in 12 months, not just in terms of getting things done, but also how a mood can shift, how an entire state can come together, feel confident, and embrace an incredible opportunity. Finally, there is a real buzz in Queensland. Everyone I talk to is now incredibly excited about Queensland hitting the world stage in 2032. The generational infrastructure, economic, cultural legacy it will all bring to this great state well beyond the Games. For the Christopher Government, this has never just been about the 2 weeks of Olympics and 2 weeks Paralympics. It's about infrastructure. It's about building things, getting things done, legacy. But before we look ahead, let's cast our minds back briefly to where we were at just over a year ago. And seriously, ladies and gentlemen, you wouldn't believe how much has changed in such a short period of time. It's fair to say the Games before the Christopher Government was elected were in strife. After years of waste, delays, indecision, we inherited a Games without a Games plan. Chopping and changing venue plans, stadium wars, political infighting, cost overruns, or even no costings at all, a couple of envelopes here and there, and no focus on the future. After 1,200 days of Labor chaos, when we came to government, there was a dire movement to just do a Victoria. Cancel it and cut our losses was growing sentiment stronger and stronger within some elements of our Queensland community and some political parties. But we promised Queenslanders we'd get the Games back on track, grab hold of the generational opportunity to set up our state for decades to come. Let's compare those 1,200 days with the last 365 days, 12 months. A year ago to the day, the Christopher Government released our 2032 delivery plan, a clear roadmap to get the 2032 Games back on track well and truly and beyond. Some say to me, and they still say, excuse me, why are you so negative? Why do you keep talking about the past? Because, ladies and gentlemen, it was a basket case. I don't have to tell you all that. You went to so many functions and hearing and seeing figures and rubbery, dodgy figures. It was a basket case. No decisions were made and not enough was put into the actual budget. And I'm going to keep reminding people because we do not want to make the same mistakes that previous governments have made. We promised the Games for all of Queensland, with generational infrastructure at the forefront of our planning and investment in 2032 and beyond. We'd moved quickly to get there. A 100-day review, expert-led assessments of infrastructure and transport from an independent delivery authority, stakeholder consultation and community input. The swift but calm and, alas, methodical assessment delivered a clear way forward to the Games that Queenslanders could and will be proud of and ensured all of the state will benefit from the legacy. At its core, the Christopher Luxon government's delivery plan is delivering new and upgraded Games venues to be delivered within the existing $7.1 billion funding envelope, ensuring all of Queensland would take centre stage for the Games, a winning legacy of infrastructure, transport, connectivity and tourism. In southeast Queensland, we promised to deliver major city-shaping developments to ensure we are Games ready and future ready. It includes the new 63,000-seat Brisbane Stadium at Victoria Park, a new National Aquatic Centre just across the road, the best in the world, new or upgraded stadiums and arenas on the Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, Logan and Moreton Bay, upgrades of the main arena at the RNA, the tennis centre at Tennyson and Chandler's Sporting Precinct, athletes' villages also at the RNA, as well as the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast, whitewater rafting at Redlands, and a world-class 17,000-seat indoor arena as part of our new housing and economic precinct at the Gabba in partnership with the private sector. We also promised to make this Games and the infrastructure about all of Queenslanders. So regional Queensland would also benefit from the generational infrastructure and prosperity. That's why we're upgrading the Barlow Park in Cairns, hosting rowing and canoeing on the Fitzroy River in Rockhampton, equestrian in Toowoomba, sailing in Townsville and the Whitsundays, archery in Maryborough. It's not just sport infrastructure though, we're delivering huge transport upgrades and extensions. New rail lines and stations including from Brisbane to the Gold Coast, the Wave connecting more of the Sunshine Coast, as well as highway upgrades from the Gold Coast to the far north as better part of the Bruce Highway upgrades. This is on top of significant city-shaping master planning already underway. So in a year of delivery and looking back in the past 12 months, as we saw for a whole decade, talk is cheap and you can't host the Games under a glossy brochure. We got cracking and it's been a busy 12 months. Within about a month, we'd introduced legislation and passed it soon after to ensure this huge swathe of infrastructure is completed on time and on budget by streamlining the approval process, making up for the 1,200 days of lost opportunity, chaos and crisis under the former government. They were strong but necessary laws, completely overriding environmental, cultural, heritage, planning and local government laws. We subsequently passed another tranche of legislation for further projects just a month ago. We kicked off market engagement to transform Wollongabba into a world-class entertainment and housing precinct through the redevelopment of the former GoPrin site and the Gabba Stadium after the 2032 Games. I have some breaking news on the Gabba precinct, which I'll come to in just a moment. I led a trade mission to the US to plug the opportunities of the Gabba precinct, as well as seeing firsthand the infrastructure delivery of the 2028 Games in LA. The Christopher Luxon government's first budget delivered $4.7 billion to get on delivering the Games, providing funding certainty for the venues, villages and transport infrastructure needed to make this historic event and transform our state. We did all this in the first 3 months of announcing our 2032 delivery plan, within 3 months. We reached a new funding deal with the federal government to secure a $7.1 billion Games venue infrastructure program. Some said it would never happen, it couldn't happen, it did. And we continue to work with our federal funding partners as we quickly move from plan to procurement to delivery. In July, we kicked off the venue procurement process for our 4 minor venues in Logan, Moreton Bay, Cairns and the Sunshine Coast. We also launched procurement of our delivery partners, the builders, the architects and engineers who will bring all these venues out of the ground and to life. And there is plenty of interest. There is plenty of interest being part of the economic legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, some fun facts. 250 registrations of interest for the delivery of the 17 new and upgraded 2032 venues, 20 expressions of interest to deliver the integrated master plan for the Victoria Park precinct. Arup has since been selected and expected to deliver me and the government a draft by mid this year. 40 expressions of interest for the game's delivery partner. Unite 32, led by Lang O'Rourke and AECOM, has since been selected, and over 140 staff from AECOM are now embedded with our Games Independent Infrastructure Coordination Authority, GICA. We've already announced a number of venue designers to fast-track detailed planning, and we're at the pointy end of the shortlist of our main building contractors. You may have noticed some movement outside of the RNA. We've begun the early works to kickstart the showgrounds transformation that will ramp up after this year's Ekka. Next door to the Ekka will be the Brisbane Athletes Village, accommodating more than 10,000 athletes and officials during the Olympic and Paralympic Games over that whole period of time. We've begun work on the new 20,000-seat main outdoor arena, giving the iconic Ekka an even brighter future. There are other venues and sites that will be important for 2032 and beyond, and while they don't necessarily form part of the $7.1 billion funding plan, we're already providing support, particularly to remove roadblocks for getting things done. For example, have given the green light for critical upgrades to the Royal Queensland Golf Club in Eagle Farm, including a new championship quality 9-hole golf course. That was for you, Tim. Securing an agreement to expand the Queensland Tennis Centre and unlock land for homes and mixed-use precinct to help tackle the housing crisis. We've also moved swiftly to make better use of sites the former government had considered, decided on, then changed their mind or didn't allocate any funding for. We're using them to help address another failure, the housing crisis. The old Visy site at South Brisbane, Labor's planned temporary broadcast centre during the Games, will instead be transformed into a world-class mixed-use precinct, including up to 4,000 new homes. And we've unlocked 6 hectares of riverfront real estate to deliver a thriving new precinct at Hamilton North Shore, including another 3,000 homes, as well as restaurants, bars and retail. The former site for Labor's Athletes Village in Brisbane, something that was only ever talked about, never actually funded, is part of that new land release. We've moved very swiftly to lay the groundwork to ensure we can get boots on the ground ASAP. And I want to thank all the team at Economic Development Queensland, some of who are here today, for making this happen. For Visy, the Visy site, huge site, we've received 81 expressions of interest, and we're now already down to a short list of 4 proponents. We announced the release of Hamilton North Shore only a month or so ago, and we've already had 44 expressions of interest for that site alone. A few weeks ago, prep work started on what will be the Logan Indoor Sports Centre. Demolition of the old PCYC is well progressed, clearing the way for a new 7,000 spectacular 9-court venue that will provide a community sporting legacy for young people, families and the wider Logan community. And then there's the Brisbane Stadium at Victoria Park. I'll share some exciting new updates on that in just a moment. But I want to run you through what we've achieved so far in that short period of time on these big ones. First, drill, baby, drill. I've said it 100 times and I've been to the sites. I did it at the Brisbane Stadium at Victoria Park. And within a matter of months, borehole drilling had already started to help unlock the location, the design, the delivery of Brisbane Stadium and the National Aquatic Centre. Then we got our first look, an incredible 63,000-seat stadium that will be the centrepiece of our games. After 2032, it will be Brisbane's main stadium and home to the Lions, Queensland Bull and Brisbane Heat, as well as big-name concerts and other events. Superstar design team Cox and Hassel have been appointed as the creative and design brains behind this amazing new centrepiece and bring a proven track record to delivery. They designed Perth's Optus Stadium and the redeveloped Adelaide Oval, to name just 2. They've also partnered with Azusa Sekai, who has delivered 120 stadiums worldwide, including the Japan National Stadium in Tokyo for the 2020 Games. As Cox and Hassel have said themselves, Brisbane will reflect not only the identity of Brisbane, but also the broader region. It will be a quintessential Queenslander in character, a place with a bit of humility more than bravado. Speaking of the stadium, GECA will take control of the site from 1 June this year as part of legislative amendments we passed a few weeks ago, ensuring early works get started. From the 1st of June this year, fencing will immediately go up. It will be a construction site, ladies and gentlemen, and prep earthworks will get underway as this site transitions. We will have very shortly a short list of building partners who will bring this incredible stadium out of the ground very soon, and we'll be able to announce a successful proponent in only a matter of months. I can also reveal the first look inside our stadium. Just imagine what it'll be during the games or a footy match or a cricket match. When you enter, you'll have long views, cooling breezes and shade, as well as incredible technology. Not a bad seat in the house. This world-class stadium will be a worthy home for the best athletes, talented performers and excited spectators during the games and well after. I can also reveal where this incredible stadium will go and the aspect. Today I can confirm Brisbane Stadium will be located at the Gilchrist Avenue end of Victoria Park with an east-west orientation, and the field of play size and shape will be the equivalent of the MCG. The many reasons why include easy access from public transport and for pedestrians, the site's topography, the usable open space around the stadium, and the sun path and the wind speed, which we had to take into account, by the way, for cricket, because you can't have a disadvantage with wind, so that's why it's the way it is. All are important considerations when building an incredible new stadium for both the games and the sports beyond 2032. I can also share that we have achieved another milestone regarding the Gabba Entertainment and Housing Precinct. The area is passing on the project torch, so to speak, transitioning from being a cross-river rail site to the Gabba Arena and Housing Precinct. And as I said again this morning at a media conference, drill again, geotechnical drilling started today at the old GoPrint site. The drilling will test the ground conditions for a 17,000-seat indoor arena as well as the surrounding precinct. Some further preps work will start in the next couple of months to get its development underway. While the former government was going to spend $2.7 billion to demolish and rebuild the Gabba for the games, and not a single sod got turned, and no plan for the surrounding area, we're partnering with the private sector to build this exciting new housing and entertainment precinct right in the heart of the capital city. It will absolutely revitalise the Woolloongabba. Just imagine being able to walk straight out of the Gabba Cross River Rail Station and into the arena for a show or a sporting gig, or to see a gig or a match in the year afterwards. Following the 2032 games, the Gabba Stadium will make way for more housing. It will be a thriving place to visit, eat, shop and live. I can reveal today that we are down to 2 proponents to deliver this transformative project, 2 groups of building powerhouses. The first in the consortia, the Brisbane Entertainment Alliance Consortium, includes Capella Capital, Lendlease, AEG and Legends Global, and the second consortia, battling it out, will be the Gather Brisbane Consortium, the Plenary Group, Live Nation and OVG. They've been shortlisted from a global field of 8 bids. From here, these 2 consortia will advance to the final phase, the last chance to wow us, but also show that they've got the right vision and the expertise to create something special and generational. We'll announce a successful proponent later this year and expect construction to start before mid-next year. But again, we're not dilly-dallying, we're starting the early works now. I can also reveal significant progress for 4 minor venues as we launch procurement for last year at my last Media Club address with you. Today I can announce Architectus has been selected as the principal architect for the Sunshine Coast Stadium upgrade after a rigorous 6-month selection process. Seating will be increased almost tenfold to 10,000 with new eastern and western grandstands, as well as new community events, spaces and better player facilities. You can see from their new vision of the stadium that it will reflect the Sunshine Coast's relaxed lifestyle. The floating curved roof is inspired by the Glasshouse Mountains, the Mooloolah River and Boccarina Beach's gentle shoreline. Architectus was also selected for one of the other 4 venues, which Minister Tim Mander announced last week in Far North Queensland, Barlow Park. The Far North is getting an upgraded stadium, increasing seating from 1,700 to 5,000 seats, with plenty of shade from the hot sun. Prep and demolition works will start at both stadiums after the end of this year's local footy seasons. In both cases, they are partnering with international sports architecture specialist HKS, who've built the likes of LA's SoFi Stadium and Perth's Optus Stadium. I can announce global sports designer superstar Populous has today been appointed principal architects of the new Moreton Bay Indoor Sports Centre. Populous's impressive portfolio include the 2003 redevelopment of Suncorp Stadium, the Sphere in Las Vegas, and the London 22 Olympic and Paralympic Stadium. The new Moreton Bay Indoor Sports Centre will feature 12 multi-use courts with a game's capacity for 10,000 spectators. As I mentioned earlier, demolition works are already underway to clear the way for the Logan Indoor Sports Centre. We passed by there earlier this week and it's almost completely cleared already after I gave the go-ahead to knock the old PCYC down. We'll be unveiling the vision for that important piece of games puzzle soon. So to recap, ladies and gentlemen, the Brisbane Stadium, design well underway, site prep work start in June, shortlist of builders finalised next month and contract awarded by the end of the year. The Gabba Arena, geotech drilling and site prep works underway, more prep work soon and a shortlist whittled down to 2 proponents. Construction to begin next year and will be completed by 2032. Logan Indoor Sports Centre, demolition and site work prep works underway. Sunshine Coast Stadium, Barlow Park and Moreton Indoor Centre, design underway, site work starting within months. The National Aquatic Centre, watch this space, but principal architect to be awarded next month, and Geeka will take over that site at the Old Centenary Pool in September this year and start early works then. Planning and delivery is well underway across all of the 17 venues under our 2032 delivery plan. One of those great venues is rowing in Rockhampton. There's been lots of discussion about this I've seen in the last few days. Well, I can confirm today that rowing in Rocky is rowing in the right direction. I can announce that World Rowing and the International Canoeing Federation are supporting the move for rowing and canoeing in Rocky to move to the next phase of the design process. Following positive discussions across the stakeholders, Geeka is progressing 2 preferred field of play options ahead of independent technical analysis being finalised. Geeka commissioned the independent evaluation of the site's technical capability to assess elements including river flow, water levels, wind, operational requirements, as well as field of play options to align with international competition and games standards. World Rowing and the International Canoe Federation delegates also visited Rockhampton late last year to see the mighty Fitzroy River firsthand. Both have confirmed no other venues are being considered. I can also confirm reports earlier this week about what will be required to make the Fitzroy River Games ready are incorrect. It will be a permanent legacy facility, not temporary, and is contained within our $7.1 billion deal we reached with the federal government. And it's not $500 million. The preferred field of play will deliver a full 2-kilometre competition course with a southern finish line downstream towards the barrage weir. The options that are proceeding for the further technical assessment will not require dramatic river changes, as some have suggested. We've reached an important milestone, and we're working well with the Rowing and Canoeing International Federations, as well as the IOC and our games delivery partners. In rowing terms, we can now hit the drive phase. This is despite, ladies and gentlemen, the best efforts by some elites who have been trying to take rowing away from regional Queensland, or taking it away from Queensland altogether. There will always be difference of opinions about venues and locations, so it's no surprise there's been attempts by some to muddy the waters, so to speak, including attempts to, God forbid, move it to New South Wales over our dead body. I received a letter yesterday, as well as Minister Tim Mander, from some agitators who were opposed to rowing in Rockhampton. To be frank, it was a disappointing read. To those turning up their noses at Rocky from afar, I draw your attention to someone who knows rowing and knows the mighty Fitzroy River intimately. Olympic silver medalist rower Sasha was born, bred and competed in Rocky. After hanging up his oars, he returned home and is now a doctor. He declared, and I quote, "The Rockhampton course is a gift from the rowing gods." It's a perfectly straight 2,000 metre framed by the beautiful big paperbark trees which protect it from a lot of wind, meaning the water is generally flat as a tack. Rowing was born on the mighty rivers of the world, like the Fitzroy. It's where the roots of our sport lie, and so to bring rowing back to its origins and showcase this magnificent natural waterway on the world stage is very special." End quote. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me be absolutely clear though. Delivering new sporting facilities for athletes is actually only part of it, and frankly, only a small part. Our focus is in what the Games delivers for communities and legacy after the Games across all of Queensland. The improved roads, the public transport, increased private investment, increased tourism, visitors telling their friends back home about the best steak they've ever had while visiting Rockhampton. Regional Queensland should share the long-term investment, something that the Games will bring, and will continue to fight for them. If we apply the logic of these agitators, then all Games and all events would be held in Brisbane and not one in regional Queensland. And we aren't going to stand for it, ladies and gentlemen. Queensland is a big state, and everybody in Queensland deserves to partake in the benefits of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, not just in Brisbane. And that's why our delivery plan, which we have not deviated from, talked about regional Queensland. If we apply that logic, as I said, sailing will be taken from Townsville with Sunday, archery in Maryborough, equestrian in Toowoomba. But we want this Games to be about all of Queensland, and that's why we are so strong and strident to stick to our 2032 delivery plan. And I'll finalise my comments on rowing in Rocky by this. I want to thank Mr. Liveris and your team, and Minister Manda and your team and department, for working with us with the International Federation by rowing and canoeing. We have worked well together. We have a great relationship. And yes, I see commentary in the media, but as I said, it has to be about all of Queensland, not just Brisbane. And that's why this government, the Christopher government, is so focused on delivering this across all of Queensland. Why should a young girl who lives and born in central Queensland not have the same opportunities? And this is not going to be a temporary facility in Rockhampton. It is going to be a multi-million-dollar permanent legacy for central Queensland. And how great for people to go to central Queensland, move to central Queensland and say, I want to be an elite rower and I'm going to learn on the Fitzroy and I'm going to win Olympic and Paralympic gold in the future for Australia, and my roots have been in central Queensland. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not just planning for a couple of weeks of sport, and it's not just about new buildings and infrastructure. When cities host Olympic and Paralympic Games, they're also making decisions about the futures of their cities, their regions, and their state. History shows that the true value of the Games is not measured in the weeks of competition, but in the decades of prosperity that follow. Around the world, cities have used the Games as catalysts to unlock urban renewal, accelerate infrastructure investment, and reshape entire precincts. Take London, for example. The 2012 Summer Games revitalised East London, delivering new homes, new jobs, improved transport, connections, and one of the largest new urban parklands in the city. The venue program for the 2032 game represents $7.1 billion. When we look at the legacy of the 2012 London Games, analysis found that every pound invested generated around £3.60 in economic benefit through jobs, tourism, and long-term regeneration. I'll save you doing the math. If Queensland sees a similar level of economic uplift, $7.1 billion investment could support more than $25 billion in economic activity over our time. London has also transformed one of its most underdeveloped areas into a major economic precinct, with more than 50,000 jobs and over £5 billion in economic output projected by 2035. The Games also unlock a 121-hectare regeneration project, delivering thousands of new homes and business investment in the areas surrounding the Olympic Park. If Brisbane can unlock similar outcomes through precincts like Victoria Park, the Gabba, the economic opportunity could be significant, supporting thousands of jobs, new housing, new industries in the heart of our city. Of course, those outcomes don't happen automatically. They come from using the Games as a catalyst to unlock the new precincts, attract investment, and deliver the infrastructure that will shape our city for decades. Closer to home, we saw the transformation following the 2000 Sydney Games, Where once was an underutilised industrial site at Homebush Bay is now the thriving precinct of Sydney Olympic Park. It's a destination for sport, events, tourism, business and community. This is the opportunity Queensland now has. The Games will bring the world to Queensland for a few extraordinary weeks, but the real legacy lies in what we build around them. The Games create the momentum to accelerate infrastructure, unlock new precincts, deliver city-shaping investments that benefit Queenslanders long after the Games flame is extinguished. They create new jobs, new investment, improve transport connectivity and public spaces. They elevate how the world sees our city and our state, and we are already seeing that interest from international companies right across. Companies are coming to us from Victoria, New South Wales, and they want to invest in the state. Across our city, Games-related investment is creating landmark activation precincts where infrastructure supports new housing, new industries and new activity. In the inner north, that opportunity will be centred around Victoria Park. Located at the centre of Brisbane's knowledge and health corridor, the precinct connects the CBD with major institutions across Hurston and Kelvin Grove and sits within the reach of the city's growing public transport, including Cross River Rail. I can announce today that the Christopher Government will be reviewing the Bowen Hills Priority Development Area as a first step of a broader precinct renewal opportunity. Under the former government, decade of decline, housing lot approvals plummeted by 29%, meaning more Queenslanders found it increasingly difficult to find and keep a roof over their head. But by grabbing hold of the level of the opportunity that comes with connectivity and amenity the Games will deliver, this 290-hectare precinct can unlock over 25,000 homes across the inner north, anchored by a brand new stadium at Victoria Park. It will attract entrepreneurial hubs, innovation industries, creative spaces for global headquarters, education institutions, hospitality, entertainment as part of the uplift opportunity. In short, this investment will not only transform Victoria Park itself, it will stimulate a halo effect of new investment and economic activity across the inner north of our city and surrounding suburbs. On the inner south, a similar transformation is emerging around the Gabba Entertainment and Housing Precinct. With the new entertainment arena and the connectivity delivered through the new Cross River Rail station, the Gabba is positioned to become one of the most significant mixed-use urban renewal areas. This investment will support housing, expanded entertainment offerings, vibrant public spaces, buildings on the Gabba's legacy as a key sporting and cultural destination of our city. Ladies and gentlemen, together, these precincts represent more than individual projects. They form two landmark economic activation zones on either side of the river, unlocking more housing, attracting investment, helping shape the next chapter of Brisbane's growth. Perhaps most importantly, the Games give us a deadline, a moment in time where we can deliver the infrastructure, the precincts and the city building investments that will shape our state for generations to come. While the Games themselves only last but weeks, the legacy of the decisions we make today will last for decades. Importantly, those decisions need to translate to action. And that's why we've been solely focused on this action over the past 12 months and will keep doing that to drive 2032. We have a much shorter runway than we would have liked. Years, literally years, were squandered because others lacked the vision and couldn't make decisions. But it's been 12 months of momentum, 12 months of hard work, 12 months of positiveness. We're getting on with the job calmly, methodically and fast. Queenslanders can now have a licence to not just be confident that we're going to get it done, they can also feel excited that it's going to be great. Not just for the couple of weeks in 2032, but for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, let the building begin. Cheers.
Wow. What a montage. Thank you, Deputy Premier, for your speech. I did want to start with continuing on with your fun facts. You're squeezing a lot from the $7.1 billion that you say taxpayers won't pay any more for. But today you said at the presser this morning that there's contingency funding for things like the Gabba. So does the $7.1 billion include the additional sports that Andrew Liveris and his team are working through at the moment and we're going to have an announcement on later this year? And if not, where does that money come from?
Well, the $7.1 billion is for the 17 minor and major venues. Now, Mr. Liveris in BOCOG, he has to get a budget for delivery of other games and temporary venues, and that's his responsibility. So all questions should be directed to Mr. Liveris on that. That's his job. He's got to get sponsorship for that, as is the case in LA doing it at the moment, Paris last year. That's their responsibility. Our responsibility in my department is the 7.1 infrastructure delivery, and that is the 17 minor and major venues. So there are other costs. The Athletes Village, we're funding that in the Department of State Development, and we've budgeted that in our first budget last year. But those other additional sports, additional temporary venues are funded under BOCOG, and that's part of the sponsorship deals that Andrew's working on.
Rowing in Rockhampton. So what really matters is the technical assessment that World Rowing needs to do. It hasn't done that yet. You said today that it wasn't moving and people that wanted to take it to Sydney would be over our dead body. The host contract is black and white though. They have the final say. So what if they say no?
But every indication that we are working with the International Federation, they're very supportive and they want to make it work. So you have to understand, I read reports a while ago saying there's no way you can fit a 2,000 kilometre stretch, 2,000 kilometre, that's a long race, 2,000 metre, that's a big one, 2,000 metre course in the Fitzroy. There are many options canvassed in the technical assessments that GECA did, and many of those assessments indicated that you actually can fit the full 2,000. Now in LA, they can't fit the 2,000, so it's gone to 1,500 metres. Incidentally, I think also on a tidal, even though the Fitzroy is not tidal, where we are in the barrage. So LA, there's workarounds, but I'm not even seeing any detrimental issue that we have to work around at the moment. We are working with the International Federation, the Canoeing Federation. We've exchanged letters, and as I said, I think, actually Hayden, I think I have a copy here for you. And here's one I prepared earlier. This is a press release issued as we speak, which includes the International Rowing Federation. Oh, you've already, my team is so prepared they've got it. And you'll see in that press release, the International Federation and the Canoe Federation are in there and backing it going to the next phase. And nothing gives me any indication that it won't happen because all the we've done a lot of technical work. GECA have done a power of work on it, which we've shared with the federations, and they're keen to get it moving to the next stage. So I think it's exciting, and I can't see anything. I have not seen anything in 12 months that would indicate it ain't going to happen, and they won't sign off on it.
Will you need to do land acquisitions?
No, I don't think so, no.
Might throw it to the media table.
Deputy Premier, hello. Marlina Whop from 7 News. I just have two questions actually. Firstly, on Rocky, will you release the independent studies that have been so far so people can see what has actually been done?
Not at this stage because those studies are with the International Federation, so it's important they're going through all the assessments. What will happen now, Marlina, is we'll move to a PVR. Now the PVR is the agreement that we enter into with the federal government, which we've just done on the whitewater rafting, for example, in the Redlands, which is our funding partner. So out of respect for our funding partners, we've got to take them on a journey, and our funding partner is obviously the federal government. But the federation, everything has been disclosed to the federation, and that's what they're completing their assessment on at the moment.
But why keep it a secret from the public?
But I haven't. I just told you what happened. It's going to happen. There's many options were presented, and there are two feasible options that the International Federation and Canoe Federation have said are acceptable to now progress to the PVR status.
Afternoon, Deputy Premier Jess Millwood from 9 News. Can I ask, if not 500 million, that number that you've said is categorically not true, then how much? And will crocodile mitigation be part of the planning? Because anyone that's been to Rocky, they are there. And the federations, you said that they visited, sorry, that's 3 questions. You said that they visited late last year. Did they raise any concerns about crocodiles in the field of play?
No, I'll start with the first. Let's go back to the first one. How much? A lot less than 500, substantially less than 500. You can then ask, are we going to disclose that? Yes, we will. But as part of our funding agreement with the federal government, as I said on many occasions, every venue we do, we want competition in the marketplace. So it will be a permanent facility, not a temporary. It's going to be a permanent facility. It's contained in the $7.1 billion. But out of respect for what Catherine King and I and the federal government have agreed to, is we want the competition in the construction industry. If we were to do what the former government did and just release all the costings, then I guarantee you this, every tender that is received is going to be on par with the costing that the government have announced or more. We don't want that. We want to drive efficiency and productivity. We're going to get productivity, by the way, dealing with the corrupt CFMEU. We're dealing with that, obviously. And we'll get productivity back to the work sites. So we'll drive down the cost. So it will be released when we award the tender. As soon as we award the tender and construction starts, we've committed to releasing all those figures. With respect to crocodiles, yep, they're occasionally there. I'm not sure if... I think one of the misunderstandings of the Fitzroy River is that it is a full tidal river. It's actually not. You've got a barrage and a weir, and up from the weir is where the Rockhampton Rowing Club is. And believe it or not, they actually just even further down that, they have a water skiing club. So they're actually like... locals are actually skiing on this thing, okay, not even in a boat, okay, or a canoe, or so it's up the barrage, it's fresh water. Yes, you occasionally get crocodiles in it, but they notify it, the Environment Department comes out and moves it. What are you, trying to find the word. Relocates the crocodile. So
is that a yes to mitigation works will be looked at, or
no? Because you deal with it there. There are rowers every day on the Fitzroy. There's water skiers on there. I've met the water skiing club, and I spoke to a young teenager who was about 17 years of age. He was the one that went out with me in that scissor reel. You would have seen me rowing on the Fitzroy River in one of the canoes, and he was with me in that, and he's been rowing on the Fitzroy since his early teenage years. He said he's never seen a crocodile, but they're all trained. If you see one, they just ring the authorities and it gets dealt with, and it's not an issue for the rowers that are currently there. The Canadian team trained on there in the Sydney 2000, and I think it's going to be, once the PVR status is essentially the business case is completed and people will see the imagery once the architect's awarded, I think people will see, geez, this is going to be an amazing facility, and you don't have to go to New South Wales. You'll have it right in Queensland. 6.5 hour drive, short flight away.
Deputy Premier, hello.
Hello, Taylah.
Taylah Fellows, Courier Mail. I wanted to ask about the holistic budget. So we've got the $7.1 billion that you say you won't exceed. Has the government worked out how much private investment it's going to need beyond that budget?
In the $7.1 billion, if the private sector want to engage with us to bring down that cost, absolutely happy to accept. But the public funding is the $7.1 billion at the moment. We are currently in negotiations, and MOUs are being signed with the Athletes Village, for example, where the state have said we'll fund the Athletes Village, the Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, and the RNA Athletes Village in Brisbane. So there's a bucket of money in the budget for that. But if there are deals to be done, then absolutely. And case in point, we're at this morning doing the drilling for the Gabba Arena entertainment housing precinct. That will be constructed and built by the private sector. We'll have to do early works around it. We'll have to bring down the Gabba in 2032. We've got our deadline. The arena will be built, probably opening 2031. So I've always been open to the private sector looking to invest. Now, Mr. Liveris and Bocogs is a lot different because that is private sector and sponsorship. So they're in really deep discussions for big, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in sponsorships at the moment, which every Olympic and Paralympic game has to get. So we're open to partnering with the private sector on any of these, and GECA has that responsibility. GECA are going through it at the moment, and they can do deals if they see it in beneficial to the state and the taxpayer.
One thing that's not in the report, DP, if I'm right, is Suncorp Stadium upgrades. So we have the most popular sport in Queensland is Rugby League. When do they get to see some upgrades to Suncorp? It's going to be 30 years old by the time the games roll around.
Yeah, good question. For Tim Mander, as the Minister for Sport, responsible for stadiums Queensland, we have as a government committed there will be some upgrades, and I know that Tim and the Premier have had discussions with the NRL and looking at what that looks like, and no doubt the Suncorp will be used for the games, and so we're just going through that process at the moment for an upgrade and what it looks like.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. Andrew from The Guardian. When the Games were awarded, Brisbane's Olympics were spruiked as climate positive, which is to say there'd actually be less carbon emissions as a result of the Games. We're no longer bound by that commitment under the IOC contract.
Because I got rid of it.
Second?
I got rid of it.
Sure. In the 2024 Paris Olympics aim to reduce its carbon emission by 50% compared to Tokyo. LA's aim for an additional 10% on top of that. They're also aiming to deliver a no-car games with an aim that 100% of ticketed spectators will travel by public transport or games transport. What is our games climate target?
I don't have one.
There is no target at all?
Yeah, we're going to build all the infrastructure required to grow the state, grow the economy, and that's our priority, is building the infrastructure.
Will there be any...
And it'll be cost less because we won't have all that.
And there'll be no commitment to transport at all?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the Wave on the Sunshine Coast. That's going to be delivered. We've got faster rail from the Gold Coast to Brisbane. We've got new roads and upgrades. There'll be public transport. Arup will hand to me in mid-year the whole master plan for the Victoria Park precinct, which will have public transport. But the minute you put those targets on, you add big percentage to costs to deliver this stuff, and our priority, and incidentally signed by the federal government, I might add, in our new intergovernmental agreement, was let's prioritise getting the infrastructure built and not necessarily how much carbon is coming out of our athletes when they're rowing the mighty Fitzroy River. That's not our priority.
Carbon coming out of athletes?
Well, whatever. They talked about carbon neutral positive games and all sorts of things, and the athletes not eating certain foods, and it's just, that's not our priority. Our priority is concrete, building stuff, getting it done, and opening it up before 2032.
Deputy Premier Marcus de Blonk Smith from The Australian. Construction costs were rising before the outbreak of war in Iran, and costs are now expected to head higher yet. You mentioned concrete. What impact will these price rises have on the Games' $7.1 billion budget?
Yeah, it is concerning, and we're obviously aware of that. In the $7.1 billion budget, the recent PVR that we've completed, which was the Whitewater Rowing Centre, believe it or not, that was announced a few years ago even by the former government, and the PVR we've just completed, we have managed to get that on what was the budget. So despite other costs and things, we're hearing reports now with productivity in Queensland that with the reforms we've made through the Productivity Commission, we're hearing reports that tenders are coming in 20-30% less now because they're not having to deal with the CFMEU arrangements that were put in place on a lot of construction sites. So we're going to keep driving that down. We're debating in Parliament at the moment. In fact, I'm not even sure what the time is. Parliament starts at 2, as long as I'm back there, because I've got a bill before the House which is dealing with the CFMEU as well. We bring productivity down. That will save costs. But we do, every contract you enter into has contingencies, and we'll just keep trying to drive the costs down, drive productivity up, which will naturally drive the cost down to build the stuff.
Deputy Premier Laurence Jeffcoat from 10 News. Just on targets for building certain venues, the government's been very stern on what time certain venues will be opened by, but this morning at a press conference on the Gabba Arena, you wouldn't commit to a hard deadline for that venue, saying it wasn't needed for the Olympics. What target will you set for private partners, and when will that venue be delivered?
2031, it will be delivered. the point I made this morning at the press conference is, under the former government, the arena, incidentally, had 2 locations, and they were going to build it over a rail station, which is never good, and they hadn't costed it properly, and the federal and state taxpayer were going to pay for it at Roma Street. My comment was that we renegotiated our deal with the federal government, and we took that funding from the federal government and invested it into the Brisbane Stadium, which is at Victoria Park, and because we were confident the private sector would build the arena. So our responsibility for that whole site is, as it's owned by the site, we're going to transition it from Cross River Rail. We're going to do the early works, which we're starting. You saw the drilling start today for the technical assessments, and but the plan is for that to be delivered by 2031. I made the point that it's technically not needed for the games because it was going to be used for the games because they were going to do a drop-in pool for the swimming. But we're now doing a national aquatic centre for a permanent legacy. So yes, technically I'm right. It's not needed for the games, but it would be a great have-to for the games. That's why we're putting the time on it for 2031. And then when Minister Manda and Andrew Liveris go through the sport program with the IOC and the federations about what sports will be played, it gives them more options to say, yes, there's certainty, we have the arena, it's going to be open by 2031, and it could be used as a venue for a particular sport. And if not, it'll get used for other, definitely other things. So our timeline is 2031.
When you're talking about sports, DP, obviously the IOC is considering the future sports for Brisbane 2032. There is some speculation that things like archery, equestrian might get axed. If they do, will Toowoomba and Maryborough get replacement sports?
Well, we absolutely committed to the regions, and our plan has archery in Maryborough, equestrian in Toowoomba, so we're sticking to that plan at the moment. As I said, the BOCOG and that are going through the plan at the moment because obviously cricket's not in 2032. Our Premier is a very big cricket tragic, hence why I'm wearing cricket socks, believe it or not. So we would, if cricket's in LA in 2028, we'd like it to be in 2032. But those discussions are ongoing at the moment. They'll be finalised this year or in the next few months, I think. And but I would love to see archery still in Maryborough. And if worst case is that they're not, then we'll have to have something else there because we committed to those regions that we're going to have sports in the regions.
DP Harry Clark from Sky News. How concerned are you about the prospect of cost and timeframe blowouts associated with the supply of labour and the supply of steel?
I'm not as concerned now because we're dealing with the Productivity Commission issue, which is going to drive down costs. And I think that, in the last 12 months since we've released our delivery plan, and as I said, we haven't deviated from it. All the discussions we're happening at the moment, I can only base it, Harry, on the fact that if you look at when we go to tender on these, the stadium, the National Aquatic Centre, the interest from the private sector to build is huge. Now, they wouldn't be bidding and tendering if they didn't have capacity to do this work. And we have got great competition. I understand, even in the stadium, there's like 8 consortia. I'm not sure if I'm meant to even say that, but there's no media here, right, Hayden? It's all Chatham House rules. There's like 8 consortia battling it out for the stadium. Now, they wouldn't be bidding if they didn't have capacity to do the work. And some builders are choosing, I'm going to bid for this one, I'm going to bid for that. So I'm not as concerned, just based on the feedback we're getting from industry saying that they can deliver all of this infrastructure. And you look at what we're releasing, like the land we're releasing through the Residential Activation Fund, the Land Activation Program, the Visi site, the Wollongabba PDA, the Hamilton North Shore. Even on those housing developments, we're getting huge interest. And the private sector wouldn't be putting those in if they didn't have capacity to deliver. Plus, all the issues with the CFMU, as I said, the productivity, that is a huge issue. And a lot of people say to me, oh, well, what about the labour shortage? We mentioned labour. We need the numbers up here. But I said, but that's on the basis that you're dealing with productivity at 2.5 days a week in Brisbane at the moment. Let's get productivity to 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and that halves it. Basically, let's get our workers, particularly in the CFMU EB sites, let's get them working full-time at the moment, because that naturally brings down your shortage of workers, because that's based on the 2.5 days a week productivity, which it is increasing, by the way, in the last 12 months. Productivity has increasing. And Hayden, even on Saturdays, we're seeing some cranes operate around the city, which is fantastic.
Incredible. I think we have time for one more question from the table.
Deputy Premier, on the June 1 works, can you talk through in more detail about what people will see? I was there this morning and someone was walking a dog, other people were hitting golf balls, but can you describe more about what we'll see from June 1?
Well, I don't know why they were hitting golf balls. It closed down as a golf course some time ago, Marlina. That's. I met some friends on the way in. I don't know if you saw some placards and people with placards. Anyway, they won't be happy because on 1 June, the entire Victoria Park is going to be fenced. It is a construction site. And we've got to get on and deliver it. And you're going to see bulldozers, you're going to see excavators, and unfortunately it will not be able to be used between 1 June and 2032. But we've got to build a 63,000 seat stadium. It's got to be safe, and you can't have people particularly hitting golf balls when there's workers trying to build a bloody stadium there either. So that won't be happening. But it's just part of the process. We've got to, it'll be closed down, and 1 June, Geeka will take ownership of the site, and then it'll be effectively a work site, and bulldozers and excavators will be on.
That was a short answer, so we do have time if there's anything else. I've got you on the hop, haven't I? That's fine. No, Taylah.
Hello. I just want to go back to the rowing in Rockhampton. So earlier you were just saying, surprise, right? Earlier you were saying that legacy is obviously really important. I just want to make clear, so when it floods in Rockhampton, is that what you're considering the legacy aspect to be the fact that Rockhampton will just have this, global standard facility rather than it being able to be used, 12 months of the year?
Yeah, so Taylah, I've read somewhere recently, I'm not sure where I've read it, but it was all this talk about $500 million and it's going to be a temporary...
I'm happy for you to tell me another cost if you'd like to.
I didn't say where I read it, it's been reported to me, this commentary. That's all being taken into consideration, but it's going to be a permanent facility. So whichever rowing facility you go to around the world at the moment, there's a permanent facility, and that will be a permanent facility. And all that, when the Fitzroy gets flooded, a couple of times a year and it comes downstream, that is all taken into consideration. So that facility, that's what the PVR process is now going. So World Rowing and International Canoeing Federation have given the tick to proceed to the next stage, and the PVR will now determine where exactly location of all of that infrastructure is.
Can I ask another sneaky question then?
Sure.
When will we get the golden update of what happens after that final test?
What final test?
Well, the final analysis you're speaking about now with the PVR, when that's all finalised, when will we get, I guess, the full green tick of approval? When do you expect that decision to be made?
I reckon when you get a phone call and get told to jump on a plane to go to Rockhampton and head to the Fitzroy River and bring your raincoat, and we'll give you an oar and jump in the canoe with me, and that's when we'll announce it. And we'll have Tim there, we'll have the Federation probably over from Lasorne, and it's going to be exciting. And it's going to be exciting for regional Queensland.
Will that be this year, do you think?
Probably. Andrew, make it happen. Yeah, we reckon it will be.
Can I ask one final question? The Gabba is revered as being a just fortress for Australian cricket. Will the new Brisbane Stadium have a permanent wicket block, or will we go soft and put in a drop-in wicket?
All right, out of all the people in the Christopher Lee government to ask me that sort of question, I am the wrong person to ask, and the person who would know has just literally walked out because he's preparing for question time. Can I take that one on notice? And see, I shouldn't have revealed I have cricket socks on. Makes me look like I'm an expert. But it's going to be like MCG style as good. So whatever the MCG has, Hayden, it's going to be better. What's better, a soft one or a hard one? Because whatever's better, it's going to be, okay?
Yeah. Not going to answer that one. Ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. Thank you to our naming rights partners, the Virgin Australia Group, Brisbane Airport and Griffith University, and our other partners. And please thank the Deputy Premier.